The security footage was crystal clear: strangers rifling through her refrigerator, lounging on her couch, sleeping in her bed. But when Sarah confronted her trusted neighbor Karen about handing over the spare keys, Karen's response made her blood run cold. They said they were your cousins from out of town. The real nightmare wasn't the invasion of her home, it was discovering who these cousins really were, and why they'd been watching her house for weeks. Sarah's hands trembled as she inserted the key into her front door lock, the familiar click echoing through the quiet Sunday evening air. 3 days in Portland visiting her sister had been exactly what she needed, until now. The door swung open to reveal her worst nightmare made manifest. Her living room looked like a tornado had swept through it. Pizza boxes stacked on her coffee table, empty beer bottles scattered across her hardwood floors, and cigarette ash ground into her cream-colored carpet. The acrid smell of stale smoke mixed with something else, something that made her stomach lurch. "What the hell?" Sarah whispered, dropping her weekend bag with a heavy thud. She moved through her violated space like a sleepwalker, each step revealing fresh horrors. Her kitchen cabinets hung open, contents ransacked. The refrigerator door bore sticky fingerprints, and inside, her carefully organized meal prep containers had been emptied and left to rot. Someone had used her expensive olive oil to cook what appeared to be a feast, leaving greasy pans stacked in the sink. But it was the bedroom that broke her. Her pristine white sheets were twisted into knots, stained with God knows what. Items from her dresser lay scattered across the floor: jewelry, photographs, intimate clothing. Someone had rifled through everything, touching everything, violating every sacred space she'd built in her sanctuary. Sarah's phone buzzed in her shaking hands. A text from her neighbor Karen. "Hope you had a great weekend." The cousins seemed lovely. Cousins? Sarah's blood turned to ice water. She had no cousins, no relatives who would ever have access to her home, no one except the spare key. Given Karen her spare key 2 months ago when she'd started her new job, in case of emergencies, sweet 60-something Karen, who baked cookies and watered plants and seemed like the perfect neighbor. Trustworthy Karen, who apparently handed out keys to complete strangers. Sarah stormed across the small front yard separating their houses, her sneakers squelching through the evening dew. Karen's porch light cast long shadows as Sarah pounded on the door. "Karen, open up." The door opened to reveal Karen in her floral housecoat, reading glasses perched on her nose, looking genuinely surprised. "Sarah, dear, you're back early. Who did you give my keys to?" Sarah's voice cut through the pleasantries like a blade. Karen blinked rapidly, her weathered hands clutching the doorframe. "Your cousins, sweetie. They came by Friday morning. Said you'd told them where to find the spare key for their visit." "I don't have cousins." Sarah's voice pitched higher, hysteria creeping in. "I don't have any relatives in this state. You gave my keys to complete strangers." The color drained from Karen's face. "But they, they knew your name. They knew you'd gone to Portland. They even knew about your job at the marketing firm." Sarah's world tilted sideways. Someone had been watching her, studying her routine, her relationships, her life. They'd known exactly when she'd be gone, and exactly who to approach. "What did they look like?" Sarah demanded, her voice deadly quiet now. Karen's hands were shaking. "A man and a woman, maybe 30s. The woman had dark hair, very pretty. The man was tall, wore a baseball cap. They seemed so nice, so polite. They said they were staying just for the weekend while they looked at apartments in the area. And you just believed them. They had a story, Sarah. They said their flight got delayed, that you'd offered your place but forgot to mention it to me. They showed me text messages on their phone, conversations with someone named Sarah about the arrangement, fake messages, sophisticated fake messages, that would convince a trusting neighbor." Sarah's mind raced through the implications. This wasn't random. This wasn't opportunistic. This was planned, calculated, personal. "I need to call the police," Sarah said, already dialing. "Oh my God," Karen whispered, tears starting to flow. "Sarah, I'm so sorry. I thought I was helping. They seemed so genuine." But Sarah was already walking away. The phone pressed to her ear as a dispatcher answered. As she gave her address and explained the situation, she noticed something that made her blood freeze all over again. A black sedan was parked 3 houses down, engine running, headlights off. In the growing darkness, she could just make out 2 silhouettes in the front seats, watching, waiting. The dispatcher was asking her to stay on the line, but Sarah's attention was locked on the car. As if sensing her gaze, the engine revved and the vehicle began to move, slowly cruising past her house. The passenger window rolled down just enough for Sarah to see a woman's face, dark hair, pretty features, exactly as Karen had described. But it was the woman's smile that would haunt Sarah's dreams, cold, calculating, and utterly without remorse. The woman raised her hand in a small wave, like a casual goodbye between friends. Then the sedan accelerated into the night, leaving Sarah standing alone in her driveway with the horrifying realization that whatever had happened in her house over the weekend was just the beginning. They weren't done with her yet. The police arrived 23 minutes later, 23 minutes during which Sarah had barricaded herself inside her violated home, clutching a kitchen knife and watching the street through her bedroom blinds. Every shadow seemed to move. Every sound made her jump. Officer Martinez was younger than Sarah had expected, with kind eyes that hardened as he surveyed the damage. His partner, Detective Chen, was already dusting for fingerprints by the time Sarah finished recounting the evening's discoveries. "You're certain you don't know these individuals?" Detective Chen asked, photographing the bedroom chaos. "I've never seen them before in my life." Sarah wrapped her arms around herself, still feeling exposed despite being fully clothed. But they knew things, personal things. Officer Martinez looked up from his notepad. "What kind of personal things?" "My work schedule, my travel plans, even which neighbor had my spare key." "This wasn't random, officer. They've been watching me." Detective Chen exchanged a look with his partner. "Ms. Mitchell, I have to ask, any recent breakups, workplace conflicts, anyone who might have a grudge?" Sarah shook her head. "I've been single for 8 months. My ex moved to California. My coworkers are great. I can't think of anyone who would. Double quotes. She trailed off as a memory surfaced. "What is it?" Martinez pressed. "There was this guy at the coffee shop last week. He was asking the barista about me, what I ordered, if I came in regularly. I thought it was just someone interested in asking me out, so I didn't think much of it." "Can you describe him? Tall, baseball cap, maybe mid-30s? Sarah's voice grew quieter. "Just like Karen described." Chun's phone buzzed. He stepped away to answer it, his voice too low for Sarah to hear. When he returned, his expression was grim. "Ms. Mitchell, we need you to come down to the station." "Why? What's wrong?" "We ran your address through our system. You're not the first victim." The fluorescent lights in the police station conference room buzzed overhead as Detective Chen spread out a collection of photographs and reports across the scratched metal table. Sarah's hands went numb as she recognized the pattern. 3 other women in the past 6 months, Chen explained. All single, all professional, all living alone in middle-class neighborhoods. The Mo is identical, gaining access through trusted neighbors or landlords, staying for extended periods, and conducting what we believe are reconnaissance operations. Sarah stared at the photos of the other victims' homes. The same systematic destruction, the same intimate violation. Reconnaissance for what? That's what we're trying to figure out. Martinez pulled out his chair. The first victim, Jessica Torres, noticed fraudulent charges on her credit cards 2 weeks after the break-in. Someone had photographed her financial documents. The second victim, Monica Williams, had her identity completely stolen. New credit cards opened, loans taken out in her name, even a lease signed on an apartment across town. Sarah's head was spinning. And the third, Chun hesitated. Amanda Foster. She started receiving packages at her address, packages she didn't order, addressed to names she'd never heard of. We suspect her home was being used as a mail drop for illegal operations. But why? Sarah's voice cracked. Why target us specifically? Single, professional women with good credit, established routines, and trusting relationships with neighbors, Martinez explained. You're perfect targets for long-term identity theft and fraud operations. There's something else, Chen added, his tone growing darker. Amanda Foster died 3 weeks ago. The room went silent except for the buzzing fluorescent lights. Sarah felt like she was drowning. How? Car accident, single vehicle, late at night. Officially ruled accidental, but, double quotes. Chen shrugged. When she'd been asking a lot of questions, getting suspicious about the packages, threatening to go to the FBI. Sarah's phone rang, the sound sharp and jarring in the tense silence. Unknown number, she showed the screen to the detectives. Answer it, Chen instructed, gesturing to Martinez to start recording. Keep them talking. Sarah's finger trembled as she swiped to accept the call. Hello, Sarah. The voice was female, smooth and cultured, the same voice that had probably charmed Karen into handing over the keys. I hope you're not too upset about the mess. We were in a bit of a hurry. Who are you? What do you want? Soft laughter echoed through the speaker. We want you to stop asking questions. Stop talking to the police. Stop making this complicated. You broke into my home. You stole from me. We borrowed your space temporarily. Consider it a rental arrangement you weren't aware of. But now that you're making things difficult, The woman's tone turned ice cold. Well, ask Amanda Foster how that worked out for her. Sarah's blood froze. Detective Chen was frantically signaling for her to keep the caller talking while Martinez worked to trace the call. What do you want from me? Sarah whispered. Your cooperation, your silence, your complete and total compliance. The woman paused. You have such a lovely routine, Sarah. Coffee at 7:30 every morning at Brew and Bean, gym at 6 p.m. Tuesdays and Thursdays, grocery shopping Saturdays at 2 p.m. It would be a shame if something disrupted that routine permanently. The line went dead. Detective Chen immediately grabbed his radio. This is Chen. I need units at Brew and Bean Coffee Shop, Fitness First Gym, and Kroger on Maple Street. Priority surveillance. Possible stalking suspect. But Sarah wasn't listening to the police chatter. She was staring at her phone, at the number that had called her. A number she suddenly recognized from her recent call log. They called me before, she said, her voice hollow. 3 days ago, while I was in Portland. I didn't answer because I didn't recognize the number. Martinez looked up from his equipment. We couldn't trace it. Burner phone, probably already destroyed. Detective Sarah said slowly, a horrible realization dawning. You said Amanda Foster died 3 weeks ago. That's right, but she was the third victim. When did the break-ins happen? Chen flipped through his files. Foster's break-in was 8 weeks ago. Torres was 6 months ago. Williams was 4 months ago. Foster was 8 weeks ago. That's not chronological order, Sarah said, her mind racing. They're not moving from victim to victim. They're cycling back. They're maintaining ongoing operations with multiple targets simultaneously. The detectives stared at her. Don't you see? Sarah's voice was rising with panic. They're not done with any of us. This isn't a one-time theft. They're running some kind of long-term operation, and we're all still active targets. Detective Chen's radio crackled to life. Chen, we've got a situation. Jessica Torres, you're first. Victim, her apartment's on fire? Looks like arson? Sarah felt the room spinning around her. Jessica Torres, the first victim, was having her life destroyed right now. While Sarah sat in this police station, while these people knew the police were involved, they were escalating. They're cleaning house, she whispered. They're eliminating evidence and witnesses. Martinez was already heading for the door. We need to get you into protective custody. But as they reached the hallway, Detective Chen's phone rang again. He answered, listened for 30 seconds, then hung up with a face like stone. Monica Williams is missing. Her neighbor saw 2 people leaving her apartment an hour ago, a man and a woman matching our suspect's description. Sarah realized with crystal clarity that she wasn't just a victim anymore. She was next on their list. The safe house was a cramped studio apartment above a Korean restaurant, the smell of kimchi and garlic seeping through the floorboards. Sarah sat on the edge of a lumpy couch, staring at the burner phone Detective Chen had given her, watching the news coverage of Jessica Torres' apartment fire on a grainy television. Electrical malfunction, the reporter announced. No injuries reported, but the tenant lost everything. Sarah knew better. They all knew better. We've got units watching. Torres around the clock, Martinez said, pacing the small space. But she's not talking. Claims she doesn't remember anything about the break-in. Says she's been having memory problems since a car accident last month. Car accident. Sarah looked up sharply. Like Amanda Foster? Different circumstances. Torres hit a tree on a straight road in broad daylight. No skid marks, no mechanical failure. Doctor said it was consistent with falling asleep at the wheel. But you don't believe that. Chen entered carrying takeout bags, his expression grim. Monica Williams' body was found an hour ago. Apparent overdose in a motel room across town. Sarah's stomach lurched. She's dead. Heroin. No history of drug use. No paraphernalia in her apartment, but the medical examiner says it's cut and dried. Chen set the food down untouched. That's 3 victims. Jessica Torres terrorized into silence. Amanda Foster and Monica Williams dead. And me, Sarah whispered. I'm the only one left who's talking. The burner phone buzzed. Sarah stared at it like a venomous snake. Answer it, Chen instructed, starting the recording equipment. Remember, keep them talking. Sarah's hands shook as she accepted the call. Hello, Sarah. The same cultured female voice, but there was something different now, an edge of irritation. You're making this very complicated. People are dying. People are making poor choices. Jessica Torres chose to cooperate. She's alive, isn't she? Traumatized, certainly, but alive. What did you do to her? Soft laughter. We helped her remember what was important. Staying quiet, minding her own business. Not asking questions about things that don't concern her. Sarah glanced at the detectives, who were frantically working to trace the call. What do you want from me? The same thing we wanted from Monica. Cooperation. But Monica got greedy, started thinking she could blackmail us. The woman's voice hardened. That was a mistake. You killed her. Monica killed herself. The needle in her arm was her choice. We simply provided the opportunity for her to make that choice. Sarah's blood ran cold. You forced her. We provided context, consequences. The beauty of fear, Sarah, is that it makes people very predictable. Monica chose death over the alternative we offered. What alternative? Her little sister, 7 years old, walks to school every day through Riverside Park. Such a trusting child. It would have been a shame if something happened to her on that walk. The phone slipped from Sarah's numb fingers. Chen caught it, quickly pressing it back to her ear. Are you still there, Sarah? Yes, Sarah whispered. Good, because we have a similar proposition for you. Stop talking to the police. Stop asking questions. Disappear quietly, and everyone you care about stays safe. I don't have a sister. I don't have family here. No, but you have coworkers, friends. Your sister Emma in Portland has 2 beautiful children, 8 and 10, I believe. They go to Lincoln Elementary. Did you know the school's security system has a blind spot near the back entrance? Sarah's vision tunneled. Emma's kids, her niece and nephew, innocent babies who didn't even know their aunt was in danger. You're monsters, she breathed. We're business people. And business is very good, thanks to cooperative people like you're about to become. Detective Chen was making urgent hand signals, but Sarah couldn't focus on anything except the threat hanging over her family. What do you want me to do? Tomorrow morning, you're going to call Detective Chen and tell him you've been mistaken, that you remembered giving permission for your cousins to stay at your house, that this was all a misunderstanding. You're going to withdraw your complaint and ask them to close the case, and then you're going to disappear. Leave town, start over somewhere else. Forget this ever happened. If I do this, you'll leave my family alone. If you do this, Sarah, everyone stays safe. If you don't, the woman paused. Well, ask Amanda Foster how that worked out. Oh wait, you can't. She's dead. The line went dead. Sarah stared at the silent phone, her mind reeling. Detective Chen was already on his radio, coordinating with Portland police to watch her sister's family. But Sarah knew it wouldn't be enough. These people had resources, connections, patience. They'd proven they could get to anyone, anywhere, anytime. We can protect them, Martinez said, reading her expression. We can put your sister's family in protective custody. For how long? Sarah's voice was hollow. A week? A month? These people waited 8 weeks to circle back to Amanda Foster. They're patient, they're organized, and they're not going to stop until I'm silent or dead. Chen sat down across from her. So what do you want to do? Sarah looked at both detectives. These good men who were risking their careers to help her, who genuinely believed the system could protect innocent people from predators. She envied their faith. I want to disappear, she said quietly, just like they want. Sarah, but not the way they want. Sarah stood up, suddenly energized by a dangerous idea. They want me to run away scared and silent. They want me to withdraw the complaint and pretend none of this happened. She turned to face them both, her eyes bright with desperate determination. What? If I do exactly what they want? What if I call you tomorrow and withdraw everything? Tell you it was all a misunderstanding? Chen frowned. That would close the case. We'd have no legal justification to continue investigating. Officially, Sarah said. But what if you kept investigating unofficially? What if I pretended to disappear, but instead I helped you catch them? Martinez shook his head. That's suicide. These people have killed 2 women already. These people have killed 2 women who tried to run or hide or blackmail them, Sarah corrected. But they haven't killed anyone who fought back. They haven't killed anyone who went on the offensive, because no one's been crazy enough to try, Chen said. Sarah smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. Then I guess I'll be the first. Outside the safe house window, a black sedan cruised slowly past, its occupants photographing the building. Sarah's war was about to begin, but she was no longer the only one being hunted. Sarah's hands were steady as she dialed Detective Chen's number the next morning, but her heart hammered against her ribs. The plan they'd hatched in the early hours felt insane in daylight, but it was the only path forward that didn't end with her family and body bags. Chen, detective. It's Sarah Mitchell. She injected confusion and embarrassment into her voice. I need to talk to you about yesterday. What about it? I think I made a terrible mistake. I remembered something after I got home last night. Sarah closed her eyes, hating every word. My cousins from Denver. I did tell them they could use my place while I was gone. I completely forgot I've been so stressed with work lately. Silence stretched across the line when Chen finally spoke. His voice was carefully neutral. You're saying this was authorized? I'm so embarrassed. They must have talked to Karen because I forgot to mention it to her. The mess in my house. Well, you know how guys can be. And my cousin Lisa isn't exactly the tidiest person either. Ms. Mitchell, yesterday you were certain you didn't have any cousins. I know how it sounds, but I was panicked, and honestly, I don't see them very often. We're not close. Sarah forced a laugh. I feel like such an idiot for wasting your time. Another long pause. Are you sure about this? Because if you're being coerced, detective, I'm fine really. I just want to withdraw my complaint and put this whole embarrassing situation behind me. I'll need you to come in and sign some paperwork. Of course, I'll be there this afternoon. Sarah ended the call and immediately dialed the second number, the burner phone the woman had called from. It went straight to voicemail, as expected. She left her message for the recording. This is Sarah Mitchell. I've called the police and withdrawn my complaint, just like you wanted. I'm leaving town tomorrow. We're done here. Now came the hard part. Sarah walked to her bathroom mirror and stared at her reflection. In 24 hours, Sarah Mitchell needed to disappear completely. But the woman looking back at her, she would become someone else entirely. The transformation took 3 hours and cost $800 in cash. Sarah emerged from the salon with shoulder-length auburn hair instead of her natural blonde, brown contact lenses replacing her blue eyes, and enough contouring makeup to alter the shape of her face. She'd gained 15 pounds stress eating over the past week, which actually helped disguise her silhouette. At the thrift store, she bought clothes completely unlike her usual style: bohemian skirts, oversized sweaters, vintage boots. At the electronics shop, she purchased a tablet and new phone under a fake name. Using an ID detective Chen had arranged through unofficial channels. By evening, Sarah Mitchell was gone. In her place stood Rebecca Torres, a name chosen deliberately. To honor the first victim who'd been terrorized into silence, Rebecca rented a studio apartment in the University District, paying 3 months in advance in cash. She got a job waiting tables at a dive bar frequented by graduate students and night shift workers. She became invisible, unremarkable, forgotten. But she was always watching. For 2 weeks, Rebecca mapped their operation. She followed the black sedan when it appeared in her old neighborhood, noting license plates, routes, timing patterns. She tracked the man and woman through coffee shops and grocery stores, learning their habits, their routines, their vulnerabilities. The woman was Alina Vasquez, 34. No criminal record under that name but 3 different aliases in the system. The man was Marcus Webb, 31, with a history of financial fraud and identity theft stretching back a decade. They worked for someone else. Rebecca had seen them taking orders over encrypted phones, receiving packages from courier services, reporting to handlers they never met in person, but it was the third person who made Rebecca's blood run cold. Karen. Sweet, trusting neighbor Karen, who baked cookies and watered plants, was photographed meeting with Alina Vasquez outside a bank. Downtown, they embraced like old friends. Karen handed over an envelope thick with what looked like cash. Rebecca sat in her car across the street, watching the woman who'd betrayed her trust collect payment for her cooperation, and felt something cold and hard crystallize in her chest. Karen hadn't been fooled. Karen had been complicit. That night, Rebecca broke into her own former house. The police had released the scene after her complaint was withdrawn, and the house stood empty, a for rent sign planted in the front yard. Using skills she'd learned from online tutorials and sheer desperation, she picked the back door lock and slipped inside. The house felt like a tomb. Her furniture remained, but everything personal had been stripped away. In the bedroom she found what she was looking for, a hidden camera, professionally installed behind the air vent. Not just any camera, a live streaming device with cloud storage capability. They'd been watching her for months, not weeks, studying her patterns, her relationships, her vulnerabilities, building a profile not just for robbery, but for something much worse. Rebecca carefully removed the device and pocketed it, then methodically searched the rest of the house. She found 4 more cameras and 2 audio recording devices. Her entire life had been monitored, cataloged, analyzed. But as she prepared to leave, she heard voices outside. Alina and Marcus arguing in hushed tones as they approached the front door. Told you, she was too smart to just disappear, Alina was saying. We should have handled her like Monica. The boss wants to keep this quiet. No more bodies unless absolutely necessary. Then we better hope she stays gone. Rebecca crept to the living room window and peered through the blinds. Alina was picking the front door lock while Marcus kept watch. They were coming inside. Rebecca's mind raced. He could slip out the back door, but they'd probably hear her. She could hide, but if they found her, she was dead. Or ... she could turn the tables. Rebecca pulled out her new phone and started recording, then positioned herself behind the kitchen island where she had a clear view of the front door. When Alina and Marcus entered, she'd have evidence of them breaking and entering. Trespassing, conspiracy enough to finally give the police probable cause for arrests. The front door opened. Alina stepped inside first, scanning the room with professional thoroughness. Marcus followed, carrying what looked like surveillance equipment. Check the bedroom, Alina instructed. Make sure the feeds are still active. Rebecca held her breath, phone recording steadily. But as Marcus moved toward the bedroom, he paused, nostrils flaring. Someone's been here, he said quietly. Recent? The air smells wrong. Alina's hand moved to her jacket, where Rebecca could see the outline of a concealed weapon. Search the house. Now, Rebecca realized with growing horror that she'd walked into a trap. They hadn't come to service the cameras, they'd come because they knew she was there. Rebecca's heart hammered so loudly she was certain they could hear it. Behind the kitchen island, she pressed herself against the cabinet doors. Phone still recording, as Alina and Marcus systematically searched her former home. Kitchen clear, Marcus called from just feet away. Rebecca bit down on her tongue to keep from breathing audibly. The metallic taste of blood filled her mouth. Bathroom clear? Living room clear? Alina's voice was getting closer. But someone's been here. The dust patterns are wrong. Rebecca closed her eyes, calculating distances. The back door was 20 feet away through the dining room. The front door was blocked by Marcus. The basement door was found something. Marcus's voice carried a note of satisfaction. Hidden cameras have been tampered with. 3 are missing. Alina cursed in Spanish. She didn't disappear. The bitch is hunting us. Boss isn't going to like this. Boss doesn't need to know until we clean up this mess. Alina's footsteps moved toward the kitchen. If Sarah Mitchell wants to play detective, we'll give her the full Monica Williams treatment. Rebecca's blood turned to ice. She had to move now. While they were distracted, she army crawled toward the dining room, phone clutched in her sweating palm, recording everything. But as she reached the dining room doorway, her elbow knocked against a loose floorboard. The tiny creak echoed like a gunshot in the silent house. There Rebecca abandoned stealth and bolted for the back door. Behind her, Alina shouted orders while Marcus's heavy footsteps pounded across the hardwood. Rebecca's fingers fumbled with the deadbolt as Alina rounded the corner, weapon drawn. Sarah Mitchell, Alina called, her voice deadly calm. You should have stayed, disappeared. The lock clicked open. Rebecca burst through the door into the backyard just as Alina fired. The bullet splintered the doorframe inches from her head. Rebecca ran harder than she'd ever run in her life, vaulting the back fence and racing through her former neighbor's yard. Behind her, she could hear Alina and Marcus giving chase, their shouts echoing through the quiet suburban neighborhood. She reached her car 2 blocks away, hands shaking so violently she could barely get the key in the ignition. As the engine roared to life, she saw Alina emerge from between houses. Weapon raised, Rebecca floored the accelerator and sped into the night, Elena's figure shrinking in her rearview mirror. Detective Chen answered his phone on the second ring despite the 2 a.m. hour. This better be good. It's Sarah. I need help now. Jesus Christ, where are you? We've been looking for. They just tried to kill me. I have evidence. Video evidence of them breaking into my house, admitting to Monica Williams' murder. Everything. Where are you driving? I can't go back to my apartment. They know where I live now. Sarah, listen to me very carefully. Drive to the 24-hour diner on 5th Street. Martinez and I will meet you there in 20 minutes. Do not stop anywhere. Else, do not talk to anyone else. Chen, there's something else. Karen, my neighbor, she's working with them. I saw her taking payment from Elena Vasquez. Silence stretched across the line. When Chen spoke again, his voice was grim. We suspected as much. Karen Hendricks has been feeding information to organized crime families for years. Small-time stuff, mostly, but this operation is bigger than we thought. How much bigger? We'll talk when you're safe. Just get to the diner. The diner was nearly empty, just a few truck drivers and insomniacs nursing coffee at scattered tables. She was Sarah again now. Not Rebecca, sat in a corner booth with her back to the wall, watching every entrance while Detective Chen reviewed the video on her phone. This is gold, he said quietly. Clear admissions. Conspiracy charges. Attempted murder. We can arrest them tonight. Arrest them for what? Breaking into a house that used to be mine. They'll claim they had permission from the current property owner. Martinez looked up from his notepad. Actually, they won't, because Karen Hendricks was found dead in her home 3 hours ago. Sarah's coffee cup slipped from her numb fingers, shattering against the formica table. What? Apparent heart attack. But the timing is suspicious. Medical examiner is treating it as a possible homicide pending autopsy results. They killed her. Sarah's voice was hollow. She was working with them, and they killed her anyway. Probably, because she'd become a liability, Chen said. With you registrissing and asking questions, Karen knew too much to keep alive. Sarah stared out the diner window at the empty parking lot, her mind reeling. This isn't about identity theft anymore, is it? This was never about credit cards and fake IDs. No, Chen admitted. We think you and the other victims were being used as fronts for a human trafficking operation. Your homes were safe houses. Your identities were covers for moving women and children across state lines. The blood drained from Sarah's face. That's why they needed long-term access. That's why they kept cycling back to previous victims. And that's why they're willing to kill to protect it, Martinez added. Human trafficking is a multi-billion-dollar business. Your little suburban neighborhood was worth millions to them as a transit hub. Sarah thought about the packages Amanda Foster had received. The mysterious visitors, the careful surveillance of routines and relationships. Not robbery, not even identity theft. Slavery. How many people? She whispered. We don't know yet, but based on the financial records we've uncovered, potentially hundreds over the past 2 years. Sarah felt sick. While she'd been worrying about her credit score and violated privacy, children had been trafficked through her home. Women had been bought and sold using her address as a cover. What do we do now? Chen leaned forward. Now we set a trap. You're going to call Elena Vasquez and arrange a meeting. Tell her you'll disappear permanently in exchange for a payout, say $50,000. Make it sound like extortion. That's insane. They'll kill me. Not if we're watching. Not if we're ready. Chen's eyes were hard with determination. These people have been operating in shadows, picking off isolated victims one by one, but they've never faced someone who fought back with backup. Sarah looked between the two detectives. These men who'd risked their careers to help her, who are now asking her to risk her life to help others. When do we do this? Tomorrow night. There's an abandoned warehouse in the industrial district. For surveillance, multiple exit routes, isolated enough that civilians won't be at risk. Martinez pulled out a map and spread it across the table. Here's how it works. As they planned the operation that would either end the trafficking ring or get Sarah killed. None of them noticed the figure in the parking lot photographing their meeting through the diner window. Elena Vasquez lowered her camera and smiled. Tomorrow night, she would finish what Monica Williams had started, except this time. There would be no negotiation, no mercy, and no witnesses left alive.